Living with Neanderthals for a day is for some a romantic notion, a return to a simpler time, perhaps, a natural, unburdened existence. This, of course, is utter nonsense. There's no simplification, only unyielding, brutal reality. The popular myth paints them as rugged individualists, master hunters at peace with their surroundings. The actual reality was a relentless grind against starvation, bitter cold, and the ever-present threat of a sudden, violent end. Their social structures weren't built on quaint notions of community, but on stark necessity and brutal efficiency. They weren't pondering the meaning of life. They were just trying to survive another sunrise. Watch until the end, and one will uncover what daily survival truly demanded from early humans, long before civilization even had a name. The scent of damp earth and wood smoke hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the precarious balance of life. A simple trip from the cave to the nearest stream, a journey considered mundane by later peoples, was for them fraught with invisible dangers. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every shadow cast by the setting sun, could signify the swift, silent approach of a predator. Their senses were finely tuned, not for aesthetic appreciation, but for immediate survival. They possessed an acute awareness of their surroundings, a constant vigilance born from millennia of living at the mercy of the wild. The faintest scent of a bear, the distant cry of a wolf, the telltale crunch of leaves under an unseen paw. All these signals were instantly processed, triggering an immediate assessment of threat. This heightened sensory perception was not a luxury. It was a fundamental requirement for continued existence. A misplaced footfall, a moment's inattention, could mean a broken bone, and a broken bone meant slow, inevitable death for anyone not capable of immediate self-sufficiency. A sprained ankle while traversing rocky terrain, a dislocated shoulder from a fall, or a deep gash from a sharp flint could render an individual utterly defenseless. There was no concept of a medical clinic, no understanding of antiseptic, and certainly no means of sustained care for the incapacitated. The injured were simply left behind, a harsh truth etched into the very fabric of their existence. The tribe's survival depended on the mobility and effectiveness of every member. A prolonged injury was a drain on limited resources, and the group, by necessity, prioritized its collective well-being. This wasn't cruelty. It was the cold logic of a world where resources were scarce and dangers were omnipresent. Even a minor injury, if it prevented participation in the hunt or gathering, could spell doom not just for the individual, but potentially for the entire group. What's one's take on this? Would one have endured such a life? Share thoughts in the comments. Their communication, often misunderstood by those who imagine grunting and pointing, was a complex symphony of guttural sounds, intricate hand gestures, and subtle body language. It was a language born of necessity, capable of conveying vital information about prey movements, potential threats, and the precise location of resources with remarkable efficiency. A low growl, barely audible, could signal immediate danger. A rapid series of hand signals, understood intuitively by all members of the hunting party, could direct a flanking maneuver or indicate a sudden change in a prey animal's direction. Their vocabulary, though perhaps smaller in sheer number of distinct words compared to modern tongues, was immensely rich in context and nuance. The tone, inflection, and accompanying physical cues added layers of meaning that transcended simple verbal articulation. This was a language of survival where ambiguity could be lethal. This silent communication was critical during the hunt, where a single misinterpretation could lead to failure, or worse, injury. In the chaos of a bison charge or the stealthy pursuit of a deer through dense woods, precise communication without drawing attention was paramount. A sudden shift in posture, a sharpened glance, an almost imperceptible flick of the wrist could communicate more urgency or a change in plan than any spoken word. They didn't debate strategies in elaborate discussions. They enacted them with an unspoken understanding honed over generations of shared experience and a common fight for survival. Every individual knew their role, their position, and the expected actions of their companions, almost as if operating with a single, shared mind. This level of synchronization was not achieved through drills, but through the continuous, high-stakes practice of daily life. But what happened when there was no food left and the tribe had to choose who eats first? If one wants to know the answer, stay with the video. Their shelters were not structures of comfort or permanence, but rather temporary bastions against the elements. A shallow overhang, a hastily constructed lean-to of branches and hides, perhaps reinforced with some scavenged mammoth bones. These were their only defense against the biting wind and driving rain. They sought natural formations first, caves, rock shelters, or dense stands of ancient trees that offered some respite from the weather. When these were unavailable, they constructed rudimentary structures, using whatever materials were immediately at hand. The primary goal was protection from the immediate threat of exposure, freezing temperatures, relentless downpours, or the scorching sun. There was no concept of a home as a fixed dwelling, a place to which one always returned. Instead, there was only a series of temporary havens chosen for their immediate tactical advantage and resource proximity. They moved with the seasons, following the migration of prey animals like mammoth, bison, and reindeer, and the seasonal availability of edible plants. Their camps were mobile, designed to be erected quickly and abandoned without regret. Building anything substantial was a waste of precious energy and time when the next blizzard, the sudden depletion of game, or a predatory threat could force them to abandon it within moments. Each relocation was a calculated risk, a balance between the known dangers of staying and the unknown challenges of moving. Their entire existence was one of constant flux, dictated by the unforgiving rhythm of the natural world. This nomadic lifestyle ensured access to varied food sources and allowed them to escape areas that had become depleted or dangerous. The concept of settling down, of cultivating land, was utterly alien to their way of life. It was an efficiency born of stark necessity, not a choice. Their social structure wasn't codified law or written decree. It was an unspoken understanding, an instinctive hierarchy that ensured the survival of the group. This order was not based on abstract principles, but on demonstrated capability and contribution to the collective good. The strongest hunters led the chase, their physical prowess and skill with a spear or club proving their worth in bringing down large game, crucial for sustenance. The most experienced gatherers knew where to find sustenance in the harshest winters, identifying edible roots, berries, and fungi that others might overlook, preventing starvation during lean times. And the elders, though physically less capable in the hunt, held the accumulated wisdom of countless seasons, knowledge of ancient migration routes, of safe water sources, of the habits of dangerous animals, and of the most effective ways to process materials for tools or shelter. Respect was earned through direct contribution, through proven skill in the face of adversity, and through the ability to make decisions that benefited the entire group. There were no abstract notions of fairness or equality, only the cold, hard logic of what kept the tribe alive. Decisions were made not through lengthy consensus, but by the weight of experience and the immediate needs of survival. If a seasoned hunter declared a certain direction for the hunt, there was little room for debate, as their experience had likely saved lives before. They understood their place within this fluid, merit-based system, and that understanding brought a grim efficiency to their collective efforts. Each individual's role was clear, and the seamless cooperation that resulted was essential for overcoming the myriad challenges of their existence. This wasn't a society built on agreement, but on the primal instinct for collective survival. In the next chapter, one will find out how they adapted to brutal weather without even a word for shelter. The knowledge they possessed wasn't learned from books or elders' tales, as in later human societies. It was etched into their very being through direct, often brutal experience. The precise timing for the salmon run in a particular river, the telltale scent of a lurking cave bear or a hidden den of wolves, the exact pressure needed to flake flint into a razor-sharp edge for a spear point or a cutting tool. These were not abstract facts, but immediate, life-sustaining truths. They were observations gathered over lifetimes, passed down through demonstration and shared practical application, rather than verbal instruction. This experiential learning meant that every skill was honed through countless repetitions, often with severe consequences for failure. Mistakes were rarely instructional in a gentle sense. They were fatal, a misjudgment of an ice thickness, An incorrect identification of a poisonous plant or a poorly aimed throw of a spear could mean instant death for the individual or starvation for the group. Their learning curve was steep and unforgiving, pruned by the constant threat of starvation or injury. Every scar on a hunter's body, every ache in a gatherer's joints, every memory of a successful hunt or a narrow escape from a predator became a part of the collective wisdom of the group. This wisdom was not stored in a formal archive, but embodied in the living memory and physical capabilities of each surviving member. It was passed down not through formal teaching, but through intense observation, mimicry, and the shared visceral experience of daily survival. There was no time for abstract theory, only for demonstrable, practical knowledge that contributed directly to the continuation of the group. Their rituals were not elaborate ceremonies with complex theological underpinnings, but practical acknowledgments of the forces that govern their lives. They were acts performed out of profound necessity and a deep ingrained understanding of the cyclical nature of existence. The sharing of a successful hunt was perhaps the most crucial ritual, ensuring that the hard-won bounty was distributed to sustain the entire group, especially the young, the old, and the injured. This was not generosity as a moral concept, but a vital mechanism for collective survival. It reinforced group cohesion and ensured that even in times of scarcity, the weakest members had a chance to endure. The butchering of a mammoth or a bison, performed with a methodical precision born of thousands of years of practice, was a ritual in itself, turning a chaotic kill into usable resources. The preparation of a hide for clothing or shelter, the precise sharpening of a spear point to maximize its killing efficiency, the careful tending of a fire to ensure its continuous burning. These were not just tasks, but essential rituals, each performed with a deliberate precision born of their critical importance to survival. A poorly prepared hide meant inadequate protection from the cold. A dull spear meant a failed hunt and potential injury. A dying fire meant freezing temperatures, vulnerability to predators, and the inability to cook food or purify water. There was no room for error, no space for carelessness. Each act, no matter how small, was a testament to their dependence on the material world and their collective effort to master it. These daily rituals reinforced their bond with the earth, the animals, and with each other. They were the rhythm of their lives, ensuring that critical tasks were performed with the focus and dedication they deserved. Up next, a shocking solution they developed to survive days without fire. The search for food was a relentless, all-consuming endeavor that dictated every aspect of their daily existence. There was no concept of a guaranteed meal, no certainty of tomorrow's provisions. Every day began with the unspoken question of where the next meal would come from, and every action was geared towards answering it. They hunted not for sport or pleasure, but out of desperate need, tracking prey for days across frozen landscapes or dense forests. The tracking itself was an art form, a reading of the land. Subtle, disturbed earth, broken twigs, the faint scent of an animal, all clues to its recent passage. They learned the migratory patterns of reindeer, the habits of woolly mammoths, and the precise moments when fish spawned in the rivers. Every berry bush, every root discovered, every small animal caught in a snare or found by chance was a triumph against the constant threat of starvation. The sheer caloric demand of their active lifestyle in often frigid environments meant that massive quantities of food were constantly required. The joy of a successful hunt was not in the kill itself, though that was a powerful moment, but in the temporary reprieve it offered from the gnawing emptiness in their stomachs and the immediate assurance of survival for the tribe. They processed every part of the animal, meat for sustenance, bone for tools, sinew for cordage, hide for clothing and shelter. They moved with the seasons, a migratory existence dictated by the ebb and flow of available resources, always pushing themselves to find the next meal, the next secure location, the next opportunity to simply continue. Individual survival was a rare luxury. The group was everything. A lone individual, no matter how strong or skilled, was a doomed prospect against the vast, indifferent wilderness and its dangers. They relied on each other for protection against predators and hostile groups, for warmth during bitter cold, for the collective knowledge that allowed them to navigate a hostile world, and for the sheer physical power required for tasks like bringing down large game. The division of labor, though fluid, ensured that different skills contributed to the whole. Hunters for protein, gatherers for plants, and elders for wisdom. This interdependence was not a matter of choice, but of absolute necessity. The sick or injured were a burden, a drain on precious, often scarce resources, and while a measure of care might be given for a short time, perhaps a broken bone splinted, or a feverish individual kept warm by the fire, the harsh realities of survival often dictated difficult choices. There was no sentimentality in the face of starvation or imminent danger to the entire group. A prolonged illness or a debilitating injury meant an individual could no longer contribute to the group's survival, and their continued presence might threaten the entire collective. The good of the group superseded all else, a cold calculus of survival that ensured the continuity of their lineage. This grim reality, though harsh to modern sensibilities, was the only way to endure. Their world was not filled with the constant clamor of human activity, the distant hum of machinery, or the cacophony of modern urban life. Instead, it was dominated by the profound silence of the vast, untamed wilderness. The wind whistling through the bare branches of ancient trees, the distant cry of a wolf echoing across the snow-covered plains, the soft crunch of snow or dried leaves underfoot as they moved. These were the dominant sounds of their lives. These sounds were not background noise. They were vital information, a continuous stream of data about their surroundings. A sudden silence could be as alarming as a loud noise, signaling the approach of a silent predator. There was a deep instinctive understanding of this silence, a recognition of its inherent power and its capacity for both fleeting beauty and sudden, terrifying danger. They moved through it not as conquerors, but as small, vulnerable parts of a much larger, indifferent whole. Their existence was a constant negotiation with the primal forces of nature, a negotiation they often lost. This immersive silence shaped their perception, sharpening their senses and forcing an acute awareness of every subtle change in the environment. It was a silence that demanded respect, a silence that held both the promise of life and the shadow of death. Their evolution was not a sudden leap or a grand design, but a slow, grinding adaptation forged by countless millennia of struggle against the most formidable environmental pressures. Every subtle change in their physiology, every refinement in their tools, from the simplest flake to the most intricate biface, was a testament to the unyielding pressure of natural selection. They were shaped by the brutal cold of the ice ages, by the relentless demands of the hunt, by the constant need to outwit and outlast the most formidable predators in the harshest climates. Their robust skeletal structures, their powerful musculature, their keen senses, and even their larger brain capacities, these were not accidental traits, but necessary adaptations for a life lived on the very edge of existence. Their thick brow ridges offered protection. Their powerful limbs allowed for efficient movement across varied terrain, and their large nasal cavities warmed the frigid air before it reached their lungs. They were a living testament to the power of the world to mold its inhabitants, a testament to the relentless, unforgiving process of survival. Each generation was incrementally better equipped to face the challenges of their environment, a slow, painstaking improvement driven by the daily reality of life and death. Their history was written not in words, but in the very bones and tools they left behind, each artifact a silent chronicle of adaptation and resilience. They persisted, not through innovation in the modern sense, but through an unwavering ability to respond physically and behaviorally to the demands of their world, generation after generation. Living for 24 hours with Neanderthals isn't an adventure. It's a grim reality check. One wouldn't find philosophical discourse or complex art, but the stark, unvarnished truth of survival. Every movement, every decision, every breath would be governed by the immediate needs of existence. Finding food, staying warm, avoiding becoming prey, the comforts and assurances of modern life would vanish, leaving only the raw, brutal demands of a world where one wrong step meant the end. It wasn't a life of choice, but of relentless necessity. It makes one wonder, doesn't it, what those ancestors truly endured to get to this point. What other aspects of prehistoric human life would one be interested in exploring? Let insights be known in the comments below, and do not forget to subscribe for more insights into the unvarnished realities of human history.